The live broadcast started like any other political debate show, with both Marco Rubio and Jasmine Crockett ready to present their viewpoints. Rubio, known for his sharp rhetoric, wasted no time in launching a pointed attack on Crockett's recent policy proposals, accusing her of being out of touch with reality and ignoring the real issues facing Americans today. Jasmine Crockett, however, stayed calm and composed. When Rubio finished his initial tirade, she leaned forward and delivered a powerful, fact-based response that not only dismantled his claims but also highlighted his own contradictory record on several key issues. The tension in the studio was palpable as Rubio's confident demeanor started to falter. As the cameras rolled, Rubio tried to regain control by doubling down on his accusations, attempting to paint Crockett as inexperienced and reckless. He claimed her approach to healthcare reform would bankrupt the system and hurt hardworking families. The audience leaned in, sensing the showdown intensify. But Jasmine Crockett was ready. With a calm but firm tone, she replied, "Senator Rubio, let's get one thing straight, your so-called fiscal responsibility has consistently meant cuts to programs that help everyday people. Meanwhile, your voting record shows repeated support for policies that favor the wealthy and powerful." She pulled up specific data on healthcare funding, pointing out how Rubio had voted against expanding coverage and blocking protections for pre-existing conditions. Her detailed knowledge of the issues left Rubio visibly unsettled. "Your rhetoric is loud, but your record tells a very different story," Crockett continued. "If we want to build a future where every American has access to quality healthcare, it's going to take real courage and leadership, not fearmongering." The studio audience erupted in applause, and even some of Rubio's usual supporters exchanged uneasy glances. Rubio attempted a comeback, but the confidence that had marked his opening moments was noticeably cracked. The atmosphere in the studio shifted dramatically as Jasmine Crockett's pointed rebuttal resonated beyond just the audience. It seemed to unnerve Rubio himself. The senator cleared his throat awkwardly and tried to redirect the conversation to economic growth, claiming that his policies were designed to create jobs and opportunities for all Americans. But Crockett was prepared for that, too. She quickly countered, "Jobs aren't created when wages are suppressed, or when workers are denied basic protections. Your opportunities have often translated into tax breaks for corporations while families struggle to make ends meet." She cited recent statistics showing wage stagnation and rising inequality under policies Rubio had championed. Rubio's smile faded. He interrupted, attempting to regain control with a sharp tone, "You're ignoring the bigger picture. America needs leadership that understands global competition and national security." Crockett met his gaze unflinchingly. "Leadership isn't about tough talk or ignoring the needs of the people you serve. It's about accountability and delivering results. And frankly, Senator, your record falls short." At that moment, the show's host tried to intervene, sensing Rubio's discomfort, but the senator had already begun to stumble over his words. His responses grew defensive and disjointed, revealing cracks in his usual polished demeanor. As the segment neared its close, Rubio's attacks turned increasingly personal and less substantive, a clear sign he was struggling to regain footing. Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, remained poised and unshaken, her confidence and command of facts turning the tide of the debate. The final moments of the broadcast saw Rubio abruptly cut his microphone, visibly frustrated, and leave the set before the official closing. The audience was left buzzing, many applauding Crockett's decisive and fearless defense. The moment Marco Rubio stormed off the set became an instant viral sensation. Clips of Jasmine Crockett's unshakable composure and razor-sharp rebuttals spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Commentators praised her ability to stand her ground against one of the most seasoned political figures in the country. Political analysts weighed in, highlighting how Crockett's performance represented a turning point in the narrative surrounding young progressive leaders challenging entrenched establishment politicians. Many viewed her as a symbol of courage, intellect, and integrity in an era dominated by sound bites and spin. Meanwhile, Rubio's camp released a statement attempting to downplay the confrontation, claiming that the senator had to leave due to unexpected scheduling conflicts. However, insiders and journalists dismissed the excuse, noting the visible frustration Rubio displayed on air. Public opinion polls taken in the days following the broadcast showed a noticeable uptick in support for Crockett, especially among younger voters and independents. She quickly became a prominent figure in political discussions, invited to speak at key forums and featured in major news outlets. Jasmine herself remained humble in interviews, emphasizing that her goal was never to embarrass anyone but to represent her constituents honestly and effectively. "This is about holding leaders accountable and making sure policies work for real people, not just special interests," she stated. In contrast, Rubio's supporters found themselves on the defensive, scrambling to justify his sudden exit and lackluster performance. The senator's approval ratings dipped, and some speculated whether this public embarrassment would have long-term repercussions for his political career. The clash wasn't just a televised argument, it was a cultural moment that highlighted the growing divide between old-guard politicians and emerging voices demanding change. In the weeks following the confrontation, the political landscape began to shift noticeably. Jasmine Crockett's newfound prominence sparked debates nationwide about leadership, accountability, and the future direction of American politics. Her performance wasn't just a moment of personal triumph, it became a rallying cry for progressives and moderates alike who felt sidelined by establishment politics. Rubio, still recovering from the public embarrassment, faced mounting pressure within his own party. Critics argued that his failure to effectively engage with Crockett exposed a disconnect between him and a changing electorate. His opponents seized the opportunity to question his ability to relate to younger voters and address urgent issues like healthcare, economic inequality, and social justice. Meanwhile, Crockett's campaign gained momentum. Fundraising surged as grassroots donors and advocacy groups rallied behind her. She leveraged the media attention to push forward her legislative agenda, emphasizing policies focused on expanding healthcare access, improving education, and reforming the justice system. Behind the scenes, political strategists analyzed the debate footage repeatedly. Many concluded that Crockett's success was due not only to her preparation but to her ability to connect authentically with viewers. She combined sharp facts with emotional resonance, addressing the hopes and frustrations of everyday Americans. The impact extended beyond the two politicians. Other rising stars in Congress took note, inspired by Crockett's boldness and clarity. The clash became a case study in effective political communication, how facts and principles can triumph over bombast and evasion. On the other hand, Rubio sought to regroup. He embarked on a series of listening tours and community meetings, trying to rebuild trust and demonstrate that he was in touch with the concerns of his constituents. Yet, many observers noted the challenge he faced in overcoming the shadow of that televised defeat. Ultimately, the confrontation marked more than a headline, it symbolized a generational and ideological crossroads. It underscored a growing appetite for transparency, courage, and real dialogue in politics, with Jasmine Crockett emerging as a beacon of that new wave. Months after that unforgettable live broadcast, the reverberations of the confrontation between Marco Rubio and Jasmine Crockett continued to shape political discourse. Crockett's victory in that moment wasn't just symbolic, it became a catalyst for tangible change in how politicians approached debate, accountability, and public engagement. Jasmine Crockett capitalized on the momentum by championing legislation that directly addressed the issues she had highlighted during the debate: healthcare reform, criminal justice reform, and economic equity. Her ability to translate her words into action earned her respect across party lines and within her own community. She became known not only as a formidable debater but as a diligent legislator who delivered results. Rubio, meanwhile, had to confront a shifting political reality. The incident exposed vulnerabilities that his opponents within and outside his party were eager to exploit. His leadership style, once seen as steady and experienced, now appeared increasingly out of touch to a broad segment of voters demanding innovation and empathy. The broader political establishment took notice. Jasmine Crockett's rise signaled the growing influence of a new generation of leaders, those who combined intelligence, passion, and authenticity in ways that resonated deeply with the electorate. Her confrontation with Rubio became a reference point for those seeking to challenge entrenched power structures and advocate for progressive change. Media outlets continued to revisit the debate as a defining moment of the era. It was dissected in political science courses, cited in opinion pieces, and used as a case study in leadership seminars. The phrase, Rubio versus Crockett, became shorthand for a clash between old politics and new energy, between rhetoric and substance. For Crockett, the experience reinforced her belief in the power of truth and preparation. "When you know your facts and speak from the heart, you can't be intimidated," she said in a later interview. "It's not about winning arguments, it's about serving the people with honesty and courage." Looking ahead, many political watchers predicted that Jasmine Crockett's star would only continue to rise. The confrontation had propelled her into the national spotlight, opening doors to influential committees, leadership roles, and a broader platform to advocate for change. For Rubio, the incident was a wake-up call. Whether he could adapt and regain the trust of a changing electorate remained an open question, but the broadcast had permanently altered the narrative around his career. In the end, the clash on live television wasn't just about two politicians, it was about the evolving face of American democracy itself, where courage, clarity, and conviction could reshape the political landscape. In the months following the intense on-air confrontation, both Marco Rubio and Jasmine Crockett found themselves reflecting deeply on their political journeys. For Crockett, the encounter became more than just a moment of victory, it was a defining milestone that solidified her commitment to bold, values-driven leadership. In private interviews and public speeches, Crockett spoke candidly about the weight of responsibility she felt after the debate. "That moment reminded me that the people we serve are watching, listening, and expecting honesty," she said. "It pushed me to work even harder, not just to win debates, but to create meaningful policies that uplift communities." Her increased visibility allowed her to build bridges across political divides. Though her stances were progressive, Crockett made a point to engage in dialogue with colleagues from all backgrounds. She understood that real progress required collaboration, and her ability to listen as well as speak became one of her greatest strengths. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio grappled with the repercussions of the encounter on his own terms. Known for his resilience, he did not retreat entirely but instead embarked on a period of self-assessment. Advisors noted that Rubio sought to modernize his messaging and connect more authentically with constituents, acknowledging the need to evolve in a rapidly changing political climate. However, the shadow of that confrontation lingered. Critics within his party questioned whether he could fully recover from the public perception of being outmatched. Rubio's future bids for higher office now came under increased scrutiny, with analysts debating if the episode had irreparably damaged his standing. The political discourse nationwide also felt the effects. The clash sparked renewed interest in the importance of civility, preparation, and truth in politics. Political commentators emphasized how Crockett's example challenged the often toxic and polarized nature of public debates, inspiring a generation of activists and politicians to demand higher standards. Community leaders and voters echoed these sentiments, expressing a desire for representatives who were not only knowledgeable but fearless in confronting injustice and misinformation. Jasmine Crockett's rise symbolized hope for a more transparent and responsive political system. As the political calendar turned toward upcoming elections, both Crockett and Rubio prepared for the challenges ahead, each shaped indelibly by that pivotal moment on live television. For Crockett, the encounter was a springboard to greater influence and reform, for Rubio, a test of adaptability and resilience. Ultimately, the confrontation highlighted a fundamental truth about democracy: it thrives when leaders are held accountable, when voices of conviction rise above empty rhetoric, and when courage in the face of challenge is celebrated. The ripple effects from the televised showdown extended far beyond Capitol Hill. Jasmine Crockett's poised yet passionate defense of her principles sparked a movement among activists, young leaders, and voters hungry for genuine change. Across the country, town halls, rallies, and grassroots campaigns drew inspiration from her example, proof that truth and preparation could dismantle even the most intimidating opposition. Local leaders began citing Crockett's victory as a blueprint for engaging with constituents. Workshops on public speaking, policy literacy, and civil discourse saw unprecedented attendance, particularly from young women and people of color eager to make their voices heard. Social media campaigns rallied behind hashtags celebrating Crockett's courage, transforming her story into a cultural touchstone for a new generation of political engagement. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett herself took on the role of mentor and advocate for emerging leaders. She launched initiatives aimed at training activists in legislative advocacy and media skills, emphasizing the importance of staying grounded in facts while maintaining empathy and connection with diverse communities. Politicians nationwide took notice. Some embraced the call for greater transparency and authenticity, adjusting their own strategies to mirror the openness and confidence Crockett displayed. Others, resistant to change, found themselves increasingly marginalized as voters gravitated toward candidates who embodied the values Crockett had so clearly articulated. Marco Rubio's experience became a cautionary tale within political circles, a vivid reminder that experience and status alone no longer guaranteed influence or respect. His attempts to reclaim his standing were met with mixed results, as the political climate continued to favor fresh voices that spoke boldly and honestly. Journalists and political commentators analyzed the broader significance, identifying Crockett's rise as part of a larger trend toward progressive leadership reshaping the American political landscape. The clash had revealed the power dynamics at play and underscored the shifting priorities of the electorate. As the movement gained momentum, the conversation turned to policy substance. Crockett's emphasis on healthcare, justice reform, and economic equity became rallying points for coalition building across demographic and ideological lines. The focus was no longer just on confrontation but on constructive solutions to long-standing challenges. By the end of the year, Jasmine Crockett was recognized not only as a formidable politician but as a catalyst for a more engaged and informed citizenry. The confrontation with Rubio had set in motion a wave of political empowerment that promised to redefine leadership for years to come. Despite the surge of support and momentum, Jasmine Crockett's journey was far from easy. The higher profile she gained also attracted intense scrutiny and political pushback. Opponents sought to undermine her credibility, digging into her past and attempting to frame her as inexperienced or overly idealistic. The pressure tested Crockett's resolve, but she remained steadfast, turning each challenge into an opportunity to reaffirm her commitment to her constituents. In Congress, Crockett began forging new alliances, bridging gaps between progressive and moderate factions. Her ability to listen and find common ground allowed her to advance bipartisan efforts, particularly on criminal justice reform and affordable healthcare initiatives. This pragmatic approach earned her respect from some skeptics while maintaining the enthusiastic backing of her core supporters. Meanwhile, Rubio's camp doubled down on efforts to regain influence. He launched targeted campaigns to highlight his experience and policy accomplishments, seeking to reassure constituents that he remained a capable leader. However, the shadow of the confrontation lingered, and many voters remained wary of his capacity to adapt to evolving political realities. The confrontation also spurred conversations within the Republican Party about strategy and messaging. Some leaders acknowledged the need to engage more authentically with younger and more diverse voters, while others resisted change, leading to internal debates about the party's future direction. As the next election cycle approached, the political landscape was more polarized yet energized than ever. Crockett's presence on the stage challenged the status quo, symbolizing a generational shift in leadership styles and priorities. Her success inspired other newcomers to run for office, contributing to a wave of fresh faces bringing new ideas and energy. Despite fierce opposition, Crockett remained focused on delivering tangible results. She held regular town halls and community events, emphasizing transparency and accountability. Her ability to connect personally with voters helped solidify her base and extend her appeal beyond traditional political lines. Rubio, meanwhile, faced mounting pressure to redefine his legacy. Whether he could overcome the damage to his reputation and re-establish himself as a major political player remained uncertain, but the confrontation had undeniably altered the trajectory of his career. In this evolving political environment, the clash between Rubio and Crockett was no longer just a moment in time, it was a symbol of change, resilience, and the ongoing struggle for power and progress in American democracy. The political aftermath of the on-air confrontation between Marco Rubio and Jasmine Crockett continued to unfold with lasting consequences that went far beyond their individual careers. That heated exchange had become emblematic of a shifting tide in American politics, a moment where the old guard clashed with a rising generation of leaders determined to reshape the nation's future. For Jasmine Crockett, the encounter was a springboard that transformed her from a rising star to a formidable force in the political arena. She used her platform not just to critique, but to build, championing legislation that addressed the very issues that had ignited the debate: healthcare accessibility, social justice, economic opportunity, and democratic accountability. Her ability to maintain grace under pressure and speak truth to power earned her admiration both at home and nationally. Crockett became a sought-after voice in policy circles and a role model for aspiring politicians, particularly young women and people of color eager to see themselves represented in leadership. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio faced the undeniable challenge of redefining his role in a rapidly evolving political landscape. The confrontation had exposed vulnerabilities that could not be easily concealed. Though he worked to rebuild his image, the moment lingered in public memory as a turning point, an instance where rhetoric fell short and authenticity prevailed. The broader political community recognized the debate as more than a clash between two individuals. It symbolized the urgent need for political discourse grounded in facts, respect, and empathy. The electorate, energized and increasingly diverse, demanded leaders who could rise above partisan theatrics to deliver meaningful change. The media, academia, and civic organizations referenced the confrontation as a case study in effective leadership and communication. It highlighted how preparation, courage, and clarity could empower underrepresented voices and hold established figures accountable. As the country looked ahead, the lessons from that broadcast remained clear: democracy thrives when debate is honest, when leaders listen as much as they speak, and when conviction is paired with compassion. For Jasmine Crockett, the road ahead was full of promise and responsibility. Her challenge was to sustain the momentum, build coalitions, and turn vision into reality. For Marco Rubio, it was a call to adapt or risk fading into the backdrop of a new political era. Ultimately, the confrontation was not just a fleeting headline but a defining moment that illuminated the future of American leadership, one where resilience, truth, and courage could change the course of history.